Hi everybody, welcome to Sprague Woodturning. My name is Jim. So in this video, we're going to take this beautiful black walnut bowl, and as you can see, we've already got a glue block on the bottom of it. And what we're going to inlay in the rim of this is these aluminum chips. And they're from 303 Castings. I got this off of Etsy, if you're wondering where I got it from. If I think about it, I'll put a link in the description below. But it should look interesting. I want to use a black resin, and it should be a real kind of silvery speckled look all through the inlay. So anyway, that's what we're going to do in this video. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. And of course, anytime you give my videos a thumbs up, it certainly helps with the analytics as well. So let's get this over on the lathe, trimmed up and sand it. And then I'm going to seal the groove before we put the epoxy in it. And we'll go from there. As I trim up the outside of this bowl, you'll see that I actually have to cut up on the bottom of it. There was a crack running along the bottom. So this bowl is probably a little shorter than it ordinarily would be. Probably only lost maybe about a ½ inch off of its overall height, but it was important to remove that crack. And of course, as you go along, make sure you always measure your wall thickness. That way you're not going to go through the bottom of your bowl, which a lot of new turners seem to do a lot. But get yourself a good pair of calipers. The ones that I'm using there are from Lee Valley. And actually, they work very well. And I've said this in previous videos, when you first enter the wood out by the rim, put the tool on its side. Once you got a place for the bevel to ride, then you can turn the flutes of the gouge up and go all the way to the base of the bowl. That's one of the great things about this type of bowl gouge. You don't need a scraper. Just ride that bevel all the way to the base of the bowl. So you'll see here that I'm having a little bit of difficulty just getting that bottom perfectly flat like I want it. Again, this is an area that a lot of times we'll use scrapers. I find sometimes when I use a scraper that the surface is even more lumpy than it was before with the gouge. And a lot of times I'll actually close my eyes and rub my hand across the surface of the wood and to pick up any of those areas that need to be addressed. It just seems to work better for me. Give it a try. And I'll cover a little bit here on sanding. I'm starting from 60 to 320, and I always start with the lathe going forward and the drill in reverse. And when I go down into the base of the bowl, I never stop at the very center of the bowl. If you do that, unless you're trying to remove a high area, you're going to get a divot in the bottom of your bowl. Then on the next grit, put the lathe in reverse, drill forward, and I just find that this gives me a better surface than just running the lathe forward and the drill in reverse all through the grits. And I like to flatten the rim as well. There's really no need to do that because there's going to be a groove cut in it, but I prefer to just try and keep things running true while I'm sanding, because sometimes the heat of the sanding will cause the bowl to go a little oval. And you're also sanding side grain and end grain, and the side grain, of course, sands easier. Here I'm just using the 3/16 inch parting tool from Crown. And I want a fairly wide inlay here. So that's why the rim on this bowl is maybe thicker than some you'll see that I do. All right, so I could put a coat of finish on, including inside the groove. That way, hopefully we won't get any resin wicking through the end grain. But what I'm going to actually use is Starbond Thin. And I'm just going to turn the lathe on very, very slowly and pour it in the groove and hopefully seal up the outside and the inside walls of where our inlay is going to be. And of course, I will set it with the accelerator. You can still get some bleed through with this too. I'm hoping if it goes slow like this though, it won't push through to the outside. It did, but I don't think that it's going to really matter all that much, to be quite honest with you. I'll do the same thing on the inside. I'll turn it in reverse this time. There you go. That seemed to have worked pretty good. Zoom in here. There is some foaming there, so I might actually just touch this with the parting tool again just to try and get rid of any of that foaming. I'll try and leave the sidewalls alone. This is what we want it to seal up. Anyway, that worked better than I thought it would. We'll see if it actually keeps the resin out. I've used this method with thicker CA glues and never the thin CA glue. That's why I mentioned that. That actually worked pretty good. I think I'll just give this a little light sanding with some 80 grit, and then we'll be ready for the inlay. It's actually a little piece of copper in there. There, I don't want any of these proud of the surface. I suspect that this is going to be a hard inlay to cut back as it is. So there, I think that's it. Now I'm not going to be able to get this in the pressure pot, so I'm just going to leave this on the bench in my clean room, and we'll pour the resin in there. Speaking of that, let's mix up some resin. All right, so we're going to use the Pro Series from Designer Epoxy. I like to use the Pro Series for these inlays. They're not real deep, and it basically cures overnight. So I originally said I was going to go with black, but I've changed my mind. I'm going to use crystal purple. My wife and I actually talked about this, and she thought that this would be a good color to go with, so she's better at colors than I am. Let's just leave it at that. I am going to mix this pretty heavy. I don't want it to be translucent at all. I want it to be really strong in color. And if you're worried about the bubbles in there, we are actually going to degas this in the vacuum chamber. I thought I would show this. Ben works, he's an Australian. He does a lot of this inside of his pressure pot. But this is inside the vacuum chamber, and you've seen me put in my GoPro. It's kind of a neat shot, but you can see the resin raise and lower with the bubbles as you release the vacuum, and it did a good job. So I've just transferred into this cup that's easier to pour. So really don't want this to go down the sides. So I'm going to take my time pouring here. This has been leveled, so hopefully that won't be an issue. There, I'll let that sit for 5 minutes or so and then come back and check on it, top it up, and this should be ready to go tomorrow. See you then. All right, so it's the next day. Resin's cured. It should be interesting. We didn't get any runs, which I was really worried about, so that's good. Nothing down the sides. That, I don't even think that's, I must have got some glue on there because that's not even end grain, so it shouldn't have come through there. Anyway, should be interesting. Should be interesting to see how hard this is to cut back. I'm anticipating it's not going to be easy. Anyway, I'm wearing long sleeves. I'm going to wear a full respirator, and I'm going to wear a glove when doing that because I don't know how this aluminum's going to behave. I'm just using the finisher here from Easy Wood Tools, and I was actually very, very surprised that it cut actually quite easily. I was really anticipating a bigger fight with it, but it really actually cut quite easy. I also want to mention that I am not using a negative rake scraper here, but I do have, as you can see, that the tool is tilted downward to limit catches. Well, I must say that cut a lot easier than I thought it was going to. It's too bad that I couldn't just leave it like this. I know that I need to do some sanding. Yeah, it's got almost like a mirror appearance to it. Very neat. Might have a winner here, folks. Might have a winner here. All right, let's sand it up. Here I'm using 60 grit PSA discs for my 6-inch random orbital sander. And again, I get these at sandpaperl.ca as well, and they work great. I did start sanding at 80. Usually it would be 60, but of course I was using 60 on the 6-inch sander. And I eventually sand this all the way to 800. Well, I may have spoke too soon. Look what's happened here. I've sanded to 320 and it's all kind of aluminum looking in color. So I'm just going to take some denatured alcohol and hopefully that cleans things up. Or I may have to do something else. Not sure. Yeah, it's different, weird. It's almost like we've lost a bunch of color. That may change when the finish goes on. As you can see, there's some spots where, I mean, these are very smooth, so I'm not surprised that I've lost a few of them out, and that's just from sanding. I didn't notice them when I was actually using the carbide cutters, but you can tell where pieces have fallen out. So anyway, I think what I'll do is I'm going to sand right up to 800, and then we'll take this off and fill these with pigment and CA glue. Alright, I was looking for a place to do this, and this is probably going to be the best place. So what I've done, when you buy 16-ounce bottles from Starbond, they send along these 2-ounce bottles in a kit. I don't know how many there is. I'm going to say maybe 6, maybe more than that. Anyway, I've taken some of the pigment, put it in here with the CA glue, and I'm just going to go around and fill any of these voids, and I'm going to use a flashlight so that I can see good. And hopefully when this is all done, you'll never even know that there was an issue. And of course, I'm going to use the accelerator to set it. I am going to spray it from distance. I find if you get too close to it and hit it with the accelerator, it tends to maybe foam up. So it's best to do that from a distance. But I'm shining light across the surface to highlight any of the areas where the aluminum is missing now. Of course, this has been sanded to actually 600. I stopped at 600, and I figured I would do this then. And then when I'll sand it again at 600, and then 800, and hopefully we'll be ready for finish. Some of these voids are quite hard to see. And as you can see, the color has come back. I guess maybe it's just the aluminum is really kind of messing with the finish, or sorry, the aluminum is messing with the epoxy. It's making it look muddy, but after the denatured alcohol is applied, it sorts itself out. Some of these are very hard to see. Now, I don't think that this is a pressure pot issue. I think the vast majority of these are because the actual aluminum nuggets have come out. That one there was probably the first real void that I can honestly say I've seen. The rest of them just look like aluminum bits have just fallen out. And that's probably just got to do with the fact that it's so smooth. Anyway, I'll just let this set up for a little bit, and we'll sand this up and get our first coat of finish on. All right, this is the first coat of Mohawk Salad Bowl finish. Now, I did have to fill this probably 3 times. And that's probably got to do with the fact there was some voids in it, and you know, if this was in the pressure pot, I don't think that those voids would have been there. Regardless, the size of the inlay, there wasn't really that many. And this will be the first of 3 coats. Now we're just put the first coat on really heavy. Let it soak in for a bit. I don't always wipe it off, but if there's any standing finish, on the bowl afterwards, I certainly will. It's always nice to see that first coat of finish go on. These lights probably aren't doing it justice. It looks pretty cool. Here I'm using 4/0 steel wool between coats. This walnut is really bad with steel wool. It really gets embedded in the grain a lot. Again, I know that I've talked about this before. Synthetic steel wools, they just don't do it for me. They're either too aggressive or not aggressive enough, and they still leave residue behind. Because I actually tried it on here, but I didn't show it. And of course, cleaning with denatured alcohol before the next coat goes on, because of the residue left over from the steel wool. All right, this is the second coat of Mohawk Salad Bowl Finish. It is the same day. I put the first coat of finish on this morning. So it's perfectly fine to put the second coat on today, or later on in the day. It's near quitting time. I should also mention that I didn't really talk about how well that CA glue did sealing up the groove where the inlay is, but it worked fantastic. And there was no bleed through at all on the inlay. There, it'll probably require another coat tomorrow, and then hopefully that'll be it. Can't go wrong with walnut though. It's a beauty. Alright, that's it for the video. I've still got it on the waste block. I had to put an extra coat on it. I wasn't too happy with the way it looked after the third coat. So anyway, I had to go with 4 coats. So that's kind of why I need to get this get it edited and uploaded and run out of time. Anyway, I'll bring you in here for a last little look. Hopefully the camera's picking that up. It's so shiny, it's very hard to take video of. It's a very, very cool inlay. And if you remember the aluminum powder video, that's kind of the look I was hoping it would look like. I should have known better. So, a couple of issues with this. If I had a tumbler with sand, I would probably take all these aluminum nuggets and put it in there just to rough them up and take the shine off them. The epoxy was having a hard time holding on to a lot of them that were near the surface, and they just kind of broke out. So that's most of the filling that I had to do was because of that. So if they were roughed up prior to being inlaid, the resin would have a tooth, something to hold on to. But I don't have a tumbler. Maybe I'll look at getting one. But nonetheless, I mean, that is just an absolutely cool inlay. I'm glad that I went with the crystal purple, and again, this is the Pro Series from Designer Epoxy, and the wood, of course, is absolutely beautiful. Walnut is king as far as I'm concerned. Beautiful wood. It's 13 by 5, I think is the rough estimates and size here. So anyway, you know, it's really cool. I'm really glad that this worked out. I'm glad I didn't use the black pigment, because I think that it would have just kind of all blended in. Maybe red would look really cool next. Anyway, we're not done with it. I'll be making more of these and I'll show them on here what they look like. Again, I'll try and get some stills up at the end with the bottom being done, but like I said, I'm running out of time. Again, don't forget to comment in order to be entered into a draw for the next giveaway bowl, which will be at 25,000 subscribers. Got a little ways to go yet, but as soon as we get some more subscribers, I'll give away another bowl and ship it worldwide. And all you have to do is comment. Again, in the description down below, don't forget about our sponsors, sandpaperl.ca. Absolutely love their products. Make sure you check them out, and they're offering 10% off your order as well. Designer Epoxy, again, $10 off your order. over $200 in epoxy, and that gives you 3 gallons of epoxy. That's a lot of epoxy. And of course, Starbond Adhesives that fixed all the little holes that we had when these little aluminum nuggets fell out. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed the video. I'm still working on Friday's roughing out video. Again, I'm running out of time for that. But anyway, that's just how it is, right? Anyway, let me know what you think. Of course, anytime you give my videos a thumbs up, it certainly helps with the analytics. And if you can share my videos on your social media platforms, that is absolutely awesome. I really appreciate that as well. And of course, don't forget to subscribe. Anyway, till Friday, take care, stay safe, and don't forget that little bell. You'll know when the video goes up. See you Friday.